In today's video, we're gonna talk about what do they call it? I always see like when it's you go out somewhere and if it's a girl's birthday and she turned 30, it's always say dirty 30. I don't know why. Like dirty 30, dirty 30, dirty 30. I guess it rhymes, but I never really got it. We're gonna talk about financial mistakes to avoid and moves to make when you are in your 30s. Ah man, I remember the 30s like it was yesterday. That was back when my knee didn't hurt that much, and I could go play like basketball for 2 3 hours, about 5 6 games, no water, and I still had energy. Ah man, those were the good old days. Sorry, I got distracted. So we're moving out of the 20s into the 30s. Hey, I want y'all to watch this whole video, but in short, this is how it's gonna go. In your 20s, you do stupid ass stuff with money. In your 30s, you spend a lot of that time trying to correct the stupid ass stuff, the stupid things that you did in your 20s. But stay tuned, don't go nowhere. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Yo, what's good? I'm Marcus. You're at the channel, The Debt Free Dad, where we're following my family's financial freedom journey, and we talking and rapping and chopping it up about the finance game as we are on that journey to become first generation millionaires. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in. So in your 30s, a lot of people call 30s kind of that messy area, the messy middle, because in your 30s, you got a lot going on. It's two pitfalls that hopefully you avoided in your 20s, but if you didn't, you just got to make adjustment and roll with the punches and do what you need to do. Two of the things that I talked about in your 20s, right on the back end before we got in the 30s, is be careful about the relationship that you enter into, and be careful with having children before you're ready, or having children with someone who you end up despising. Because hey, as an attorney, I never did family law. I don't want to do family law, but that get messy. And also from just a basic financial standpoint, family marriage is one of the main key indicators of wealth. But on the flip note, divorce is another key indicator of poverty. So those are things on the coming out of the 20s you want to kind of look out for. Going into your 30s, you got a lot of things going on. This is where most people buy their first home. This is where most people get married. This is where a lot of people start to have children. This is where a lot of people may be paying for student loans that they took out in their 20s if they took out student loan in their 20s. Check out the video above so y'all can see what I was talking about in the 20s for y'all early folks out there in the 20s. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers for a 30-year-old. If you're in your 30s, you were on the back end, you kind of lollygagged around, you didn't start investing in your 20s. Now we know at 20, $95 a month from the age of 20 to 65 invested into an investment account that tracks the S&P 500 will get you at $1 million. At 25, you lollygagged 5 years off, you was partying, it's all good, we understand it. Is about 153, 157, somewhere around there. Again, the link is above or in the description box for the 20-year-old recap. Now you're 30. Hey, let's get realistic. I didn't start investing till like 28, 29, so I was kind of on this 30 end. Now, for a 30-year-old to have $1 million by the time they retire at 65, they would have to invest their money into an account that tracks the S&P 500, and they would have to invest monthly $285. So it's actually still quite possible to have $1 million by the time you reach age 65 if you are 30 years old. At the age of 20, like 95% of that $1 million portfolio would be growth from compounding interest. When you get to age 30, about 88% would be growth from your army of dollars working for you to get you that $1 million. So again, we clearly see that time is of the essence. So in the 30s is weird because, in the 30s, you're kind of at that point where you're establishing yourself in a career, or you're just in the early part of your career. So your actual income from your career is probably not at the peak. Most people's peak income doesn't occur to 40. So you're kind of in your career, but you aren't making that top salary that you would probably make in your career, because that doesn't occur around 40. But in your 30s, what happens? We all know what happens in your 30s. What happens? I'm gonna wait. Y'all tell me what happened in your 30s. Your level of responsibility increases. Did I give y'all enough time to talk about? Well, anyway, like I said, in your 30s, your level of responsibility increases. So think about it. You probably purchased your first home. You might be married. You might have children. You have expenses related to childcare, home maintenance. You have other obligations. So in your 30s, one of the most important things you can do is make sure that you are allocating your time appropriately to make sure you got enough time to handle your family commitments, to make sure you got enough time to handle your work commitments, your volunteer commitments, your commitments, so you can do things and have that me time as well. Because things get messy, things get gloomy. And a lot of times, if you made mistakes in your 20s, like I did, my 30s were really made just kind of trying to rectify some of those mistakes. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, when you talk about allocating the time in your 30s, I think that's the most important thing. Because let's see, from 30 to about 34 or 35 was where I was really focused on my career. Um, and I'm gonna just be honest with you. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I was probably focused on my career to the detriment of my family. I looked in my early 30s because in the 20s, you kind of scraping by, was I didn't have really enough to do what I wanted to do and to, you know, give my family the lifestyle that I wanted them to have. So, when I got into my late 20s, I kind of got to the standpoint of, okay, enough of this BSing around. I need to focus on my career. And by focus on my career, that means I actually got involved and went places where I can meet people who were players in politics, people who were players in business. I kind of entrenched myself in those communities. Back in what was it called? Like, I think it's Group Me, where you can find groups that like biking or hiking or motorcycles. I got in groups focused for attorneys, entrepreneurs, businessmen. I kind of really got involved in those type of scenes because I knew I needed to be in those places to grow my career. And from the age of 29 to about 34, 35, like, I mean, I can't even think of, let's say from 20, starting at about 28, I went from about a $40,000 salary to by the time I reached 34, 35. Let's see, more than triple. Let's just say I was focused on my career, so I really wanted to get that money. But the problem with that was it took a lot away from the time that I wanted to spend with my family, and I just dropped the ball on some things. I just, was like, hey, I gotta work, I gotta work, I gotta take this opportunity, I gotta take this role. It was all about, at that age range, I was all about career progression and leadership roles because I knew that that could get me where I wanted to be financially. So, I did that to the detriment of my family because when you choose that route and you want to focus on making money, you can make money. You can make a lot of damn money if you want to. You can make a hell of a lot of money, especially if you want to jump in the private sector. But, I just wanted to be able to provide the lifestyle that I wanted my family to have. I wanted them to be able to take a couple of vacations a year. I wanted them to have access. I wanted my kids to be able to go to the camps and to do the things that they wanted to do. And, that took some dedication, but part of that dedication was me kind of focusing too much on my career and not enough on my family. In hindsight, it's probably it probably was a way that I could have balanced it more. I feel like I just spit all over my microphone right there. But there probably was a way that I could have balanced it more and better. But I think sometimes what is our best trait is also our worst trait to have. I have the ability to compartmentalize something. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. There's no if and buts about it. I I'm a figure this. I'm gonna figure it out and do it and make it work. But that's at the cost of compartmentalizing it to having this solo focus. So having that focus is a big benefit. It lets me get things I want to get accomplished. but having that tunnel vision also allows me not to see anything else. So if I could go back to my, in my early 30s, I would have found a way to better allocate my time so that I didn't, kind of sidebar my family early on when I was focused on my career. So that was kind of how it worked out for me. So in your 30s, I think you really want to focus on, being a grown up. If you want to grown up in your 30s, you better grow up. That means you should start kind of saying like, okay, I should be budgeting. I should be taking advantage of my employer's match with my 401k. I should have an insurance policy that covers myself and could provide for my family. My family should have insurance policy just in case something happened. They don't have to do a damn GoFundMe or do all of these things to get their money up. That should be, I should have money in a savings account to where if an emergency happens, I can handle that emergency. If I get in a car accident, I can pay that deductible. That's just grown man stuff. It's just grown up stuff. It's just an adult. And that don't mean you're special. It just means congratulations. You are doing what you're supposed to do as an adult. So I think for me, that was kind of the most important thing in my 30s, realizing all the mistakes I made in my 20s financially, um, and kind of going back and rectifying those things. And, also being able to maximize your time, because if you maximize your time right in your 30s, you can get a lot of your time back in the 40s. So even if you didn't start investing in your 20s, $285 a month invested into an account that tracks an ETF and that tracks the S&P 500, $287 a month will get you at $1 million by the age of 65. So it's definitely not too late, and you're definitely still young. It's definitely a great return on the investment. The key and the bottom line and the takeaway from, being in your 30s is rectify those mistakes in your 20 and grow the hell up. We got to grow up, and sometimes that may not be in that behavior necessarily. It may not be in our relationships, but you need to grow up with your money. You need to grow up with your relationships, and you got to maximize and prioritize your time. Like, don't do what I did. In hindsight, it's not a big deal because that was years ago. In hindsight, it's not a big deal. Like, hey, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Focus on your career, get the money right. Then your family will always be around. But nah, I probably could have did more with my family. Probably could have spent more time with my wife. I could have focused more time on my wife and children, but I was so focused on getting the career, getting the career, getting the career, getting the bag, getting the bag. And by the time I looked and like, at 34, 35, I was like, oh man, woo, that was a rough 5 or 6 year run, but we comfortable now. But then I was like, oh snap, I got to go back and police and rectify family things that I kind of pushed off and didn't focus on because I was so focused on my money. So y'all make sure y'all get a balance. That was kind of deep. That was kind of personal. Your boy was hey, in his early 30s, your boy was hungry, but I dropped the ball on some things. So that's the best advice. Balance, adult, grow the hell up, do what you got to do. I'm out. I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.